Hello and welcome to SOUQ Pulse. Thank you very much for everyone that has been there and waited for us to get back on air. It's really a delight, and I really appreciate you. For everyone that has sent a message and asked questions and why are you not air, what happened? Not much. We just needed to rejig and get back to you better. And that is where we are right now. SOUQ Pulse is your show where we put our hands, fill the pause, ask questions, talk, and now reach out. We look at countries doing businesses. We look at nations offering loans. We look at agencies also offering loans. We now look at the businesses itself and ask direct questions. Are they doing well? If they are, how are they doing it? For those that are not doing well, we ask direct questions. Why? Then for those that are picking up loans that they can't pay back, or loans that are policies on it that has some inverted commas or things that we can't explain, we still talk, we ask questions. And we tell you on the other side, don't keep quiet, let's talk. Because when we talk, we get hurt and changes can be made. It doesn't matter on the side of the divide you are on. The winning, the losing, it's like a flip chart. It can't always flip. Africa needs to join the race. Whether we like it or not, it's a race. And we need to play. It's a market. We must not just come there to buy, we should also come to sell. Who should we emulate from? Who is doing it better? SOUQ Pulse talks, and you should also talk. My name is Chooks, John Rogers Chooks. For a very long time, let me not put dates and specifics to this, Africa has faced loads of security challenges. Now let's forget about what happens outside major cities. Are they important? Extremely, but let's now start from within major cities and start looking at what is the architecture for security like? What is the policing like? What is the people's initiative like? What is the ownership of these communities like as it concerns security? That is where our topic for today is coming from. And we are asking ourselves, if we say we are responsible for our own life, are we not also responsible to secure, to make sure that we are able to find, see, avoid the calamities before they happen? That brings us to what we're talking about today. We are looking at, can video surveillance impact security in African cities? Is it possible? Can video surveillance impact security in African cities? Can we see these issues before they happen? Then if they happen, can we have enough evidence or enough things, enough material to check, look, investigate, and find who these criminalities are? I almost didn't want to say criminalities, but we need to mention these things at a time. Now, we are going to have an expert talk about this. No matter how serious it is, we will tone it down a bit. We're going to have a digital surveillance expert join the show today and get to talk about it. He is no other but Mazi Chukwuemeka Ukaegbu, who happens to be someone that has been in that particular space for a very long time. We're not mentioning names of organizations or mentioning names of businesses, so let's just leave it at that. He will come in and tell us majorly what this and how we can benefit. Is it possible? Where is possible? We'll get to talk about it. What is also the business side of it? We'll get to talk about it. Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, join me as I welcome on SOUQ Pulse for the very first time, Mazi Chukwuemeka Ukaegbu. You're welcome to SOUQ Pulse. Can you unmute your device, please? Thank you for joining SOUQ Pulse. You're looking very fresh and dapper.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me on SOUQ Pulse. Thank you so much.
We're supposed to have had you on Monday, but you were on transit. And we on this side had some other technical issues. And thank you for staying in and being with us. Now, on SOUQ Pulse today, we will have Mazi talk to us on surveillance, video surveillance within our cities. Now, we know for sure that if we have a particular unit where crimes or whatever, we can see issues before they happen, then things can really be sorted. We can see more confidence, or we can have the police force or whoever is in charge have control of a vicinity. So let's learn from the expert where we are getting it wrong, where we are missing it. Okay, so now, Mazi, are you still there with us? Can we have you back, please? Okay, now there are some things most people might not understand. For those that travel outside Africa, you will say, okay, this happens in this city, or this happened in this European city. Now let's talk about Africa. So Mazi Chukwuemeka Ukaegbu, are you here with us, please?
Can you hear me?
Definitely I can. Can you hear me too?
Okay. Yeah, loud and clear. Network. Network is part of the issue. It's part of the issue. When we're talking about deployment of any form of technology in Africa, particularly in Nigeria, network is one of the issues. Security surveillance, in particular, you need to always have good network. But let me not jump the gun. Surveillance would help us to determine, to see the crime, or to see the build-up to the crime. The build-up. There are so many things that are now part of surveillance that makes it possible for surveillance cameras to key into database that has the IDs of criminals, known terrorists, people who have certain tendencies, who have been arrested once in a while. And imagine if we had something like that rolled out in a city that is having issues with terrorism. You have surveillance that is connected to a database that has, known associates or known felons or people who have this kind of criminal record. All it will do is that any of those government cameras or cameras connected to the city surveillance system that captures any of those felons would send an alert, and law enforcement would know that these people are known felons or people who have such tendencies are about, and take preemptive measures. The appropriate law enforcement agency can sweep on them and help us prevent, such issues. Crime can be prevented. Security surveillance is a system that allows you to see ahead.
I like that part when you say crime can be prevented.
Oh, yes.
I also like that part when you say imagine. Then I'm not asking myself, should I be the one to imagine, or you should be the one to enlighten me and tell me what is possible? Because if you say I should imagine, I will just paint a whole lot of pictures in my head. But before we start imagining, let's start from the basics. Now, for those that travel out of this country, they say if you do something in central London, whether you like it or not, you're being seen. So it doesn't matter how far or how fast you run, somebody somewhere is looking at you. Now, let's start that. Is it possible for us to have city-wide surveillance in African cities?
Okay, thank you for that. Going by your example, London, central London, is well covered by surveillance. I'll also want to state that some African countries, some major African cities in some African countries have tried to deploy these systems. Some have it already functioning, and some have had some failed starts. I think we are in the category of people who have done the false starts, the failed starts. I know that when we had the IGP, former IGP, former IGP Sunday Hidero, between 2005 and 2007, somebody came with a roadmap, very interesting, and it was rolled out in the FCT, citywide surveillance. If you know the FCT properly, on top of Bolingo Hotel, there was one there, one near the mosque, and in strategic places connected to the Louis Edet headquarters, the police headquarters. And it was a good attempt at replicating what happens in UK. But, like what happens in Africa, after a while, I think Babambola people started packing away the cameras. Some of them were no longer functional. After Hindero left office, the next IGP worked in with some other people, and they had some, functional for a bit of time, from 2008, 2009, 2010. I'm even aware that there is a probe going on that matter, but that's by the way. Answering your question, there have been failed attempts by some African cities. It is possible. Thank God for solar. We don't need to depend on power supply or other networks. We can use solar and deploy wireless WAN networks, and connect these cameras wirelessly. That's how it's been done everywhere else, apart from places like London, where they have bothered to run hard wire in some places, to run fiber optics in certain places. You see, African cities can have it. It comes down to the will to do it and to secure it. I say between 2005 to 2007, under Hindero, in the FCT is there. If you drive past some junctions in the FCT, you see some solar panels that are dangling. Either the camera is still there, the camera has been taken, and Babangbola has carried the. Sorry, when I say Babangbola, because it's an international audience. The people that sell scrap iron, that pick up scrap iron, they have picked up the box where the batteries were and all that. Technology has moved ahead of that kind of deployment. So we can have better deployments in African cities. The will must be there. The political will must be there. We can afford it. Rwanda, the capital of Rwanda, they have a very good system in place. And I know it because the gentleman there doesn't want to turn around and hear stories. He doesn't want to turn around and find out that some people are moving away, are trying to take advantage of insecurity. You understand what I'm saying? Rwanda had a very terrible genocide there. Since the gentleman came in, that's the sign of political will. He has paid the price for it. The right technology is in place. He has it. In Cape Town, you have it in the city center, downtown, spread, and in the major places is when you start going into the hinterland where we have, Black people staying. That's when you don't have so much of it, but you have on the street, basic bus stops and all that. In Johannesburg, you have that. I know in Angola, in their capital, they have a couple of that. The African cities have tried to put it up. I think Nigeria is falling back. After being one of the pioneers, we are now stuck with the shell of the system that's not functional. So in answer to your question, yes, African cities can do that. And some are doing it, and some have tried, and we have tried. And I know Lagos, the one in Lagos is functional. There were traffic cams in Lagos, they are functional. The previous administration and this administration have ensured that Lagos has stayed at the forefront of that. But whether it's tied into their crime network, whether it's tied into a database that can do people counting, database that can identify known felons and individuals, that can pick them out to show you that, oh, this person has been here, this person has been here, which would help with crime prevention. Crime prevention is key. Crime solving is good, when you're doing investigation and you start playing back, but the technology that has gone ahead of us, gives us the ability to see and predict what can happen, or at least determine that such and such a person who has such and such a record has been around, so that somebody can follow him, somebody can keep an eye on him. When he makes a false move, he gets picked up, lives and property can be saved. Prevention is the key. So we can do it. We have what it takes to put this system in place. I know of some political people talking about some governors who have come up and they have asked for proposals, and they have reeled out a network. But for them, it was just a way to siphon funds. They did not really commit to it. It was just a way of
Okay. Before you get
helping
to
somebody out.
that
Yeah.
leg you are trying to drag right now, and the table you were setting up, which we definitely will get to. Let's look at this particular issue. Now, you brought up the topic. You brought up the no, I won't call it a topic. You brought up a known fact that this, at a point in time, was initiated by a past police IG. You gave names and you gave some few places where you could find them, thanks to your knowledge. And you decided to share that. Now, you also told us of a fact that as we speak, a lot of those particular installations are bad, stolen, spoiled. Now, that brings us to my next question. Do you think it's possible to have this surveillance in private hands? Or do you think it should be quartered with the police? Is it possible for a private hand to handle the surveillance and the information given to the police? Or the police should handle this surveillance, knowing fully well that this can actually be a form of business? So is it possible for police private initiative to work on this citywide surveillance?
Okay, thank you for asking that. Yes, it can be outsourced. It can be outsourced, under a good arrangement, because when it is removed from the quarters of being in the police headquarters, for instance, and it's being run by a private agency, I think other security agencies can tie in easily under the arrangement. You understand? We have the DIA, we have the NIA, we have DSS, we have all the other security agencies, NSA, the Civil Defense, NDLEA. Now, if we have a robust system put in place, come on, there's an organization that the government set up. Okay, although now it's a government organization, but it started as a PPP, private public-private partnership with the government, called Galaxy Backbone. They are the ones running everything concerning networking, running fiber, internet subscription for government agencies, tying in all agencies. Now, it was formerly a PPP arrangement. Now, I think it's wholly owned by the government, which is a good concept. Now, for surveillance, we can have that kind of concept where it is outsourced to a private organization that is a PPP arrangement. PPP because, technology requires a lot of funding. And particularly technology for security purpose requires premium funding, because you need to get the right kind of cameras, you need to get the right kind of systems in place. You understand? You need to have the kind of cooperations, when you need to run inside, particular city manholes. You need easy clearance. So the government has to be involved in it, but the running of it so that it can be effective and efficient and secured, because when something is run by a private enterprise or a private entity, there is more care. You see, when it's a wholly government-owned thing, come on, the scavengers can go there and pick something up, and somebody tells you, hey, I can't find it. That kind of thing. But when it's a private thing, there'll be somebody in charge of making sure that they are in place. There'll be somebody always in front of the screen. There'll be somebody checking the alerts, the information coming in. You understand what I'm saying? It will become somebody's job, somebody's earning, somebody's livelihood will be dependent on it. Yes, outsourcing it will work perfectly, but it will work better if it is a public-private partnership. Galaxy Backbone is a case study of how that can work perfectly well. You understand? And even Galaxy Backbone can tie in, give the people, or the people can get their own internet access, connect into government buildings and things like that. You see, it's not just rolling out this in public places. You need to also put it in government buildings, put in at least outside shopping malls, because I know shopping malls will be, are able to put theirs in place to take care of their own security. And then when this kind of thing is done, the private agency that handles this kind of thing can actually get into agreements facilitated by the government, such that when a crime has been committed, for instance, if a car is snatched in a shopping mall, and the surveillance system of the shopping mall has captured that, there should be a way allowing the government agency that's in charge of surveillance to connect into the system. This is possible, IT-wise, but permission must be given by that agency to allow them to come into their network and connect and get the footage of this incident, and then send it to the necessary government or law enforcement agencies. Highway patrol, a vehicle has been snatched. Highway patrol, send it to the control room, so the state control room, so that all patrol vehicles can even be sent. Everybody has a smartphone. All police people have smartphones. Send a short video of what has happened, who has taken it, of the vehicle, information. It will make law enforcement more interesting. So yes, a private agency can take this up and run it. It would be a breath of fresh air. Then they will take better care of it. I'm sorry I go off and on, but this is what should happen within our space. We don't have to wait till bandits have taken somebody from his home and have called for ransom in this country. No. While they are on the street, if their street comes, they come, whatever agency or organization that chooses to do this, or if this arrangement is in place, information can be sent to the very next police post, or the very next patrol vehicle. You understand that such and such a thing is happening in that vicinity, or even to the district police office. See, technology is dynamic, and has made it possible. We need to put these kind of things in place. If we put it in place, all these stories that we hear, okay, maybe your question would be, okay, we are only restricting this to urban centers. Even in the not very urban centers, these cameras work now with solar panels, small solar panels, and with good batteries, lithium batteries that are small, that hold power enough. So in the rural areas, the deployments are possible. The private agency controlling this, if it is outsourced, can easily get information to the law enforcement agency that is closest to the problem spot, even to the customs. You see, this is so, how do I call it, pervasive. At the custom crossings, border entry points, known entry points. Yes, we don't have a fence, delimiting, where our borders are. But, those bush tracks, cameras can be placed under trees, solar panels tied up on top of the trees, so that it gives power, so that as these people are passing, they are seen. We know these tracks. We know all these things, deep in Zambiza forest. Deep in that, it is a Sahel savanna. I believe so. So it's flat. It's it's not like hilly kind of place. So you can have is in strategic places, placed both covertly and overtly, so that we have information. We know when these people are moving, when they are passing, when they are coming, where they are going, and it can be easy for us. So in answer to your question, yes, you can see I go on and on and on, because this is something that is very possible, it's very feasible, it can be done, and it should be done if we're serious about securing ourselves. See, countries and places that don't have the kind of challenges we have are taking this thing seriously. Like you're suggesting, they even have some private, PPP arrangements for organizations that are running this things for them. You see, I don't know why we have.
I see the passion in your voice. I see the determination in your face, and your voice tells it all. Your experience comes to bear each time you speak any sentence. We have a guest, Mazi Chukwuemeka Ukaegbu, who has spoken so passionately with a lot of, I won't call it bitterness, but with a whole lot of zest and asking some. He's answering our question, but within his answer, he's still asking questions. Why are we not there yet? He's telling us a whole lot of possibilities that we can achieve, a whole lot of lives that can be saved in the long run, and a whole lot of things that we are missing out on. We still have him. Mazi Emeka, are you there with us, please?
Yeah, I'm right here.
Here. Now, let's look at this particular side because we are running short of time, not out of it. Now, let's look at this way before we get to business side of it. Now, let's look at privacy. If we decide and say, okay, now let's follow suit and put cameras in all major cities, to what extent is that going to infringe on people's privacy?
Okay, thank you for that question. Privacy, the question of privacy, it's a balance. There's a balancing act. You need to weigh privacy against public safety, public safety and the overall good of everybody. So in view of privacy, it's a balancing act. It's a balancing act. Where public safety is premium or is priority, we'll sacrifice privacy a little bit. But nobody's going to put a camera inside any other person's compound. But we'll put it on the street. We'll put 2 or 3 on the street so that we have a good view of what's happening on your street. If you now decide to have a street party, then you invited us to the party. If you have a street party and we have cameras on the street, it's a street party. You see, you invited us. Sorry about that. That's on the lighter side, but we're not going to put cameras inside anybody's home, but we'll have on the streets, we'll have in government-owned business places, and would encourage, when the state goes out to do this, the state would also give a standard specification to business places. If you're opening a shopping mall, sorry if I may digress a little bit. I know that outside these shores, when you have a public place, there are county regulations. The government, local governments have regulations of certain standard of equipment that you must have there before they can allow people to come in there. Because the government, their number one responsibility of government is the security of its people, security and safety of its people. That's government's number one, responsibility. So the government in other places gives certain standards for shopping malls and public places, marketplaces, and things like that. So when the state decides to go the extra mile here to put these surveillance systems in place in every city, on every street, in dark areas, everywhere in the city, they would also have regulations in place that will make shopping malls, shopping plazas, markets, market unions, to put in particular standard of equipment that the government system can easily tie into. You understand? Yes, it will be controlled such that it will be controlled by those private entities. But when the government needs to have access to those systems, because they have predetermined the standards, they can easily access the system and see what they want to see. This happens in a situation where there is a felon on the run. somebody is trying to escape from law enforcement agents, and he goes to a shopping mall, and he's at the counter, and the camera that is above the counter, since it is that particular standard, and maybe somebody makes an anonymous call, I see somebody who looks like this gentleman that we're looking for, and he identifies the shop, the government agency should be able to tie into the system and zoom in through that camera and say, okay, that's the gentleman, and law enforcement agency will come. You understand? So with regards to where to draw the line between public safety and privacy, it's a delicate act, but it's an act that is based on how important the priority, how critical, we say in security, we talk about criticality in security, how critical it is, the securities in the area. I'll give you an example. Near the SOUQ or near the State House, for instance, security near the State House, if you're living near the State House, man, your privacy is going to be impinged upon, because everything that crawls around that area, everything that coughs, everything that sneezes around that area, when a system like that is in place, we should be able to see it, because it's a high priority area. State House, government house, an estate where judges are living, where legislators are living, even people who live in close neighborhoods, they call their place critical security, top security place, because everything that happens in that area where the kids are playing on the field, where the common areas in those closed estates, those common areas, swimming pools and stuff like that, the surveillance system in those places ought to be such that the government should be able to tie into it and see what they need to see and prevent what needs to be prevented. So it's a balancing act, privacy and public safety, or even personal safety. You see, it's a balancing act. I hope I've answered your question.
You have answered my question as a security expert, so I will take that for now. Now, let's look at the business side of it. Now, there are a lot of equipment that come to play when we say we need citywide surveillance. There are a lot of applications that come to play. There are a lot of hardware that come to play. Now, let's talk politics, because on SOUQ Pulse, we say Africa should get productive. How many of these equipments, be them the hardware, be them the application, be them the software, be them whatever development we call it, how many of them is made, manufactured, or developed in Africa?
Wow. That's a good question. Okay. Presently, I'm aware that the only place where some form of assembling of computer systems, as in practically assembling of computer systems that are actually in use, used by the public, and where they don't have any problems with it, that only happens in South Africa. I know of Mesa systems. Now, an assembly line, an industrial line that can assemble computers, can build a DVR. That's what we call the system. Can build a DVR, can build an IP system. So they have that going in place. I know that at a certain time, I'm sorry to have mentioned certain company names, but I know that in South Africa, they were doing that a while back. I'm also aware that here in Nigeria, SOUQ systems, they are able to assemble computer systems. I know of other people who have gone into that. Now I don't know to the extent that these systems are fully functional and are commercially viable, not just being bought by governments, agencies, and organizations, but they are commercially viable. Any organization that can assemble a computer system can put together a security system, just a change of particular things on the motherboard, and the systems and what is required for it to be functional is the same. The motherboard, network connections, then the video in, video out, and all that. So we have organizations that have the capacity to do this, but I know for sure, I know certainly that they are not doing it right now. So basically right now, most of these things are purchased outside the country. Our beloved China, our champion in technology. Our beloved China has taken the standards of technology, the US standards, the UK standard, like we used to say, and the European standard. And they have made products that, they have standardized based on how much you want to pay. You understand? If you want the low cost, they have it. You have the medium range, they have it. You have the top range. The top range of functional surveillance systems, they have it. Then if one also decides to, leave China and to buy direct from US, they have. But most of the US companies are producing in China. You go to Europe, most of the European companies are producing either in Taiwan or recently in Japan, with some, agreements that they just signed with Japan. They are producing some of these things in Japan. You understand? And the idea of doing all these things there is to have some level of standardization, and to be sure that the system that's in place or that is being produced is robust enough, to give you 24/7. A surveillance system is not a system that should have a downtime. It should have zero downtime. You don't want a system that a crime has taken place or something is about to happen, and you want to see and you want to see what happened, and hey, the system is shutting down. They had this, it's suddenly, full, and it didn't give anybody any alert, and hey, what are we going to do about it? We did not capture the crime. You see, a security surveillance system is one that should be on 24/7. You should have all the backups, all of those things in place. So the company in South Africa, the ones in Nigeria,
thank you very much.
They have the capacity. They have the capacity, but I don't think any of them are putting it to security surveillance use right now. I don't know if I answered your question.
Okay. Now let's look at it from this other angle. If we are looking at surveying African cities, if we are looking at surveying a whole lot of area, you will agree with me that we need a whole lot of equipment. You will agree with me that we need a whole lot of manpower. You will agree with me that this is capital intensive, which all I've said, you've said. Don't you think Africa should start vesting their strength in producing these things? Because if we are able to copy, just like the way China copied the US, if we're able to copy them, we have these companies that can't do it. They have the capabilities, just like you've said. Don't you think we should also get into that space and encourage them to really do this? If we have to say, okay, somebody should go ahead and put a standard to it, then good and fine. But don't you think we should play in that sector and be able to use the product we are developing and save the effects that we keep pushing out?
Yeah. Yes, this thinking is correct. We need it in every local government. We talk about community policing. We talk about having crime, snuffed out from the grassroots. We talk about the person that knows the people being the person that detects the crime, see something, say something. We say all that in security parlance. This means that when we're doing security surveillance, we'll need to have equipment, cascaded down, to all these other places. The local government will have their stuff tied in. We can, through the network, connect to it, see what's going on. You know, the state governments will have their own different areas, different cities, different centers, equipment. Yes, it will provide employment if the country decides to go into this, to provide employment and, you know, a level of training and enlightenment for those that are going to handle it, both the deployment of it, both the servicing of it, the engineering part of it. You know, it will provide employment for those that will be viewing, that will, you know, checking the people, counting, checking the face recognition, checking. There's a level of expertise. You see, the kind of thing that happened in India a couple of years back, you see, when they started taking off jobs for, you know, call termination jobs, and, you know, this 24 hours answering system jobs, taking it from Europe. You know, it would raise the average standard of the workforce here. You know, when everybody that is, you know, like youth service is able to be trained to work in any of those surveillance centers, it will form a good core of our law enforcement. You see, all this cry about state policing, you know, yes, it is good, but in this, imagine in that setup, they'll have a surveillance unit, you know, with people working in it that would be able to man these systems, service these systems, install these systems. Yes, it is a good investment for the government to make, turning away from purchasing abroad and encouraging these companies that have the capacity to do it locally. It is very good. That should be the way, because if you decide to buy all this from outside the country is going to be rid of a lot of foreign exchange, which we need right now to stabilize both, you know, the inflation in the country and things. We should encourage homegrown technology, not just homegrown training, homegrown technology. A camera system, a camera is easy to assemble. You see, if we have an agreement with a country like China, they have a lot of technologists who are engineers who have borrowed, who have copied technology excellently from the West, who can come to us, and, you know, companies can enlist and have people go through the training of how to build cameras, You know, when you open a camera, you'll be shocked. It's a lens, it is a motherboard, it is a powering system. You know, simple technology that can be put in place and easily assembled or even produced locally here, easily. You know, assembling is something. Assembly means we bring in the parts knocked down. It is a good thing. You know, you still reduces the cost of, you know, buying it from outside, but you're still buying the components, everything outside. Then producing it locally is when the company that prints the motherboard is a local company. The company that is producing the lens is a local company. The company that is producing, you know, the powering system, you know, it's a local company. You understand what I'm saying? The company that is producing the motherboard, producing, you know, the memory, the hard disk, you know, the storage system, it's our local companies. Now, the employment that will be created won't only be the employment created for those that are manning the systems, but for those that are producing. You see, so when this kind of thing wants to happen, we need to get government patronage. I'll give you an example. I'll tell you something. I'll give you an example.
Okay. We want to say thank you.
You know, Innocent. Oh, sorry, I'm out of time already. If I can just mention something. Innocent, I beg your pardon, I shouldn't be bringing this up, but I'm just saying, when you're talking about transfer of technology, Innocent started assembling vehicles here in the country, and he got some government agencies or some government administrations to buy into what he's doing, to buy into it, to patronize him. But there are a lot of them that are not doing that. We hear that the House of Rep and the senators have gone to bring in Toyotas again. So that's what I'm saying. Government patronage, if we decide that we want to have these things produced in the country, produced by local, indigenized, I don't know if I'm saying it right, having it done locally, government patronage must, by law, has to be signed into law, that government must buy Nigerian when it comes to surveillance. When government sets the example of buying Nigerian when it comes to surveillance, then you will find out that, and of course, the price will come down because it's been produced locally, and I want to also believe that by that time, maybe power supply is going to be better and the cost of production is going to be low, because there are a few things that have been produced in this country and the cost of production.
I 100% agree with you.
You see, once we have all this in place, then we're good, we're coasting. Government patronage.
Thank you.
Private patronage, private investment. Wow. The paradise of Nigeria, the Nigerian dream come to pass.
Very much, Mazi. It's been a pleasure having you on SOUQ Pulse, and I am very happy I had you today. Sorry for the postponement, but thank you. This happened today. Thank you for enlightening us. Thank you for giving us a piece of your mind. And thank you for letting Nigerians and Africa know that it is possible for us to have this and also build this system here. I hope when we call you once again, you also answer us. Thank you very much, Mazi Emeka.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me.
To all our viewers out there, let's get this right. Remember what we say. It's our nation, it's our continent. Most especially is our life. It's ours to protect. It's ours to take responsibility. It's ours to get Africa productive. And we have to keep talking. If we want to say let's prevent crime, then let's see it before it happens. Let's stop it before it happens. And let's talk and advocate for city surveillance. It's not difficult. Those particular equipments can be made here if we put our hearts to it. Thank you very much for being part of SOUQ Pulse today. We'll do this again on Monday. But before then, have yourself a very beautiful weekend. My name is SOUQ John Rogers SOUQ. On behalf of the entire crew, bye.